If you're struggling to find your ancestors' date of death and want to build a detailed family tree, I'm sharing with you the mistakes you may be making and how to overcome them. You'll learn which records not to look for and, well, some unusual records to perhaps look for as well. Hey there, I am Lisa Lisson, a genealogy expert with 15 years of experience helping others find their ancestors. On this YouTube channel, I share my best strategies, tips, and tools for uncovering your family history and building a healthy family tree without the overwhelm. Okay, so let's talk about that ancestor's date of death. It is a vital piece of information that we seek for all of our ancestors when possible. But, well, why is it so important? Well, that date of death definitely helps to fill out an ancestor's story. It gives us, well, the end, right? But when we can narrow down that date of death and find that specific date of death, it does help us find the resources that we need to further our genealogy research when it comes to looking for wills and estate records and other records that are going to benefit building that family tree out. Now, another reason that finding that date of death is so important is it does help us differentiate between ancestors who might have the same name. So for example, you could have 3 generations of men in the family all with the same name. I tell you this because, well, it's happened to me in my family tree on more than one occasion. I came across 4 different men, all of the name John White in Colonial, North Carolina, all within the same county. Yes, definitely a difficult puzzle to sort out those gentlemen as well. But knowing those birth dates and death dates for those ancestors and for those men became very important when it came to distinguishing who was whom and which estate records went with which man. Knowing the birth and death dates is important because it helps us distinguish between those men and attribute life events and family units to the correct individual. And then another reason that you're going to need those date of death dates is that if you are by chance trying to become a member in any of the multiple lineage societies that are out there, they frequently require that for the individuals. They typically require birth, marriage, and death dates for all of the generations that they list out on the application. So you're going to need that information for those applications. Okay, now we've talked about why it's important to find that date of death, but why are we missing it? Why are you perhaps not finding that date of death for that ancestor? Well, I'm going to share with you 5 reasons why you might be missing it and what to do about it. So the first thing is perhaps that ancestor did not die where you think they died. So you could be looking in the wrong area. You could be looking in the wrong county. If they lived close to the county line, the border, then check those neighboring counties because it is perhaps possible that the records got filed erroneously in a different county. It is also possible that when family units lived close to county lines or state lines, that perhaps if they were ill, they may have gone to a family member's home in a different county or state in order to be cared for prior to their death. So it is very possible that they may have passed away in a different county or state simply because they were with family there. So you want to check those areas as well where the other family members live. This is actually something to consider on those female ancestors and of childbearing years. Consider that they went to a family member to stay and be cared for during their final stages of pregnancy. And perhaps things did not go as planned and the woman passed away during childbirth. So this can definitely account for individuals having passed away in a separate county or state that you might not have thought to look at. Also consider, were there type epidemics going a lot around, such as TB. Many people may have gone to a TB sanatorium in order to be cared for during that disease, and those are oftentimes quite a distance away. They could be in an entirely separate state or part of the state from where you would normally expect to find your ancestors. So you want to consider the context of the time period that your ancestor perhaps passed away to see if that perhaps would be an option that they may have chosen. Now, another reason that you may be missing finding your ancestor's date of death is the fact that you were looking for records that, well, never existed to begin with. So let's think about this scenario. Now, I often hear from readers and viewers who are struggling to find that ancestor's date of death, and they are looking for a death certificate, something at that county, state level to document, that legal document that about their ancestors' date of death. The thing that we have to remember as researchers is, though, that death certificates as we know them today are relatively modern records when it comes to genealogy research. Many states did not even start recording death until well into the 1900s. So for example, an ancestor who passed away in the state of North Carolina in 1901 would never have had a death certificate created for them. Why? Well, because formal death certificates were not required to be registered here in the state until 1913. And even then, full compliance didn't actually happen for several years. So when you are researching your ancestors' date of death, consider what records were actually generated at the county or state level for that time period that they died, because you do not want to waste your precious research time looking for a record that didn't exist in the first place. So in the case if a death certificate was not being created during the time period that you're looking, then you just need to turn your attention and focus on other types of records that would have documented a date of death. Now, this is something I actually talk about much more in depth in my Beyond the Grave, Finding an Ancestor's Date of Death masterclass. We go beyond those traditional records that we typically think, such as death certificates, and look at those alternate sources for an ancestor's date of death. Now, another reason you may be having difficulty finding your ancestor's date of death is the fact that, well, you are doing cemetery research and looking at that gravestone, which would hopefully have that date of death on it. Well, it's difficult to read. It's difficult to decipher. There's been a lot of damage, just time worn down over on that gravestone. Now, when this happens, what I do is I will actually take a photograph of that tombstone, and I will take it from multiple angles. I will also get up close as I can, to be able to get the words in it as well. And then once I am back home, I actually will upload those photographs into a photo editing software so that I can then adjust the shadows. I can adjust contrast, colorations, to be able to bring out perhaps those numbers and those letters a little bit better. So that is one option. And in case you're wondering, I use VividPix Restore for this type of work. I'll have a link in the description below for that if you're interested. Now, the fourth reason that you could be missing your ancestor's date of death is because the records that you were looking for, you're actually using, well, a different name. In other words, their name, you may be missing their name because it is spelled differently. There's a spelling variation that is not being pulled up when you are doing the searches in the databases. So the transcriptions are perhaps so different from how you're spelling that name that you are not getting the search results that you want. So we have to make sure that we account for spelling variations. Intentional name changes, sometimes it's just a lack of consistency when it comes to spelling or writing names out that we see that. There are many reasons for why an ancestor's name may be spelled differently or multiple ways throughout the records. But we as researchers have to keep that in mind and have to be aware of that so that we can help to mitigate some of those issues when it comes to doing the search. So what I recommend that you do is that as you have done your genealogy research and continued to research in all records for your ancestors, not just the death records, is keep a running list for all of the name spelling variations that you see. You can also use wildcard searches for that to help you perhaps pull up other alternate spellings that you might not have thought of in the past as well. A wildcard search is where you substitute one or more letters in your ancestor's name with an asterisk. This tells the search engines that you are not sure of the letters that go here, and a wider range of results will be returned. Now, this allows you to find spellings and transcription results that you might not have thought of previously. Now, this is something I talk more about and show you the strategies to get around spelling variations in my secret bonus video that I have for you guys called Mine Newspaper Gold, Discovering Ancestors' Death Date. And if that's something that you're interested in viewing, you'll find a link to that bonus video in the description below. The fifth reason that you could be missing out on your ancestor's date of death is that you are not utilizing a set of records called the mortality schedules. The mortality schedule was taken alongside the population schedule for the census years of 1850 to 1880. The mortality schedules recorded individuals who died within the previous 12 months of that population census being taken. Now, you will not get the day of the death, but you will get the year and the month. Additionally, you get the cause of death and you get the individual's age. You also possibly might even get their occupation. So there's a lot of really good genealogical information within those mortality schedules beyond just the month and year of the date of the death. The mortality schedules can be quite interesting because frequently they include all ethnicities as well. So if you have not checked out the mortality schedules that went right alongside those population schedules for those census years, you are missing out on a valuable resource, not only for the date of death of your ancestors, but also for other useful information as well. I know that searching for your ancestors' date of death can be incredibly frustrating. I get stuck in my own research, And I know that you do too because, well, you share your struggles in the comments as well as in my inbox. But here's the thing. You could be creating your own genealogy brick walls. Maybe you've combed through countless records, databases, and websites without success. I completely understand how overwhelming it can be. Many researchers will stop after their basic search in those traditional genealogy records and databases and miss out on many underutilized resources like, say, historic newspapers. And I want to show you how to get the most out of newspaper research, especially when it comes to searching for your ancestors' date of death. Now, here's a little secret. I actually avoided newspaper research in my early searches because, well, I was a bit overwhelmed and unsure how to actually get the most out of it and to find what I was looking for. I didn't know which newspapers to even begin looking in, and I didn't know how to perform an effective search when I actually did find an appropriate newspaper. And because of that, I actually stalled my own research out and missed out on important information that surrounded my ancestors' death records. That's why I created a special training video for you on how to search for your ancestors' date of death in historic newspapers. In the secret bonus video, I walk you through step by step how to effectively use newspaper archives to find those elusive death dates. Now, obviously, I can't say you'll 100% find your ancestors' exact date of death, but I know if you know how to search for resources and within newspaper databases, you will be confident knowing you did a complete and thorough search for your ancestor's date of death. Now, the My Newspaper Gold, Finding an Ancestor's Date of Death in the Newspapers, is a bonus training that goes along with my masterclass Beyond the Grave, Finding an Ancestor's Date of Death. You will find a link to the My Newspaper Gold, Discovering Ancestors' Death Date training through the link in the description to this episode. And, well, I'll see you over there.